This is the Fit Femmes movement. Have you felt overwhelmed with your fitness journey and feel like you just want to give up? Are you a busy female professional or entrepreneur looking for weight loss and self-care solutions that you can squeeze into your hectic schedule? Then you're in the right place. Let's get inspired to make fitness and healthy living improve rather than consume your life. Together, we'll take major strides towards a happier, healthier, even wealthier you. I'm Julia Hickman, your host and coach. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Fit Femmes movement, where we have conversations with guest experts, and I do solo episodes on ways for busy female entrepreneurs or career women to up-level their lives and to just do things in a smarter and not harder way so that you impact all the people around you in a positive way and you don't, lead yourself to overwhelm or stress and all the unnecessary things that we definitely do want more of. Today I have Jane Pilskalnietis.
Pilskalnietis.
Okay.
Skull, like skull. Yeah.
Practice this, guys, and kind of close, but not quite.
I'll say it one more time. Pilskalnietis.
Pilskalnietis. Yeah, I think I did it.
Okay.
So Jane is going to be talking to us about some great things that you might find helpful to you as you start to plan out your summer with your families. And she's an outdoor play specialist. She mainly works with organizations like camps and schools. But if you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, if you're an aunt, this might still be of value to you. So I'm very excited to chat with Jane. So Jane, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and how you got started doing the work that you do?
Yeah, it's been one of those funny long journeys. I did a degree in landscape architecture, and I've always been, I guess, interested in children in general. Like, I was a camp counselor, I taught skiing, that kind of stuff. And then I really was interested in children's landscapes when I was in school, but my life kind of took me in a different direction, and I got doing more sort of backyard designs that weren't about children. And then I started to realize that I really missed being with kids. So I started to get into environmental education and connecting children to nature. And then I started to realize the value of play and how children these days just aren't getting the same kind of play opportunities that I was getting as a child, or that a lot of us did. And there was a movement going on at that time when I started to get into that around getting kids outside, playing and advocating for that. So I started running what we call pop-up adventure playgrounds, which was basically a bunch of going to a park with a whole bunch of stuff and letting kids really just play and create and explore. And there was a whole philosophy around how to support that. And then now I've taken all of that knowledge, as well as my knowledge of being a mom and a parent and an aunt, and put that together to help other organizations advocate and support the child's right to play.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, the way that you grew up can be different with the way that kids are growing up these days. I find that to be similar for me too. I was born in South America, and we were outside most of the day. Like, we hardly ever turned on the TV. Didn't have a computer at home. I mean, iPads didn't exist back then, but yeah, we didn't even have I don't even think we had a phone for a while. So yeah, I mean, the way to entertain ourselves was, you go to you go to the kid next door's house, and you play tag, and it's time to come home, and it starts to get dark out. Mm-hmm. That was how I spent the first several years of my childhood. And it's it's great when I can give my kids that same opportunity and like encourage them to play outside and encourage them to be like barefoot and, playing with dirt and playing with sticks, playing with leaves. Not only is it like nostalgic and it brings me back, but it's also, and I'll let you kind of talk more about all the great benefits, but it's just so great for their development, for like their imagination. And I'm totally not anti-screens. I feel like there's a time and a place for screens too, especially when like we're trying to get work done. But for the most part, I feel like it's there's so much great good that can come out of like having our kids play outside and spending time with them outside. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more like of what you see, like how it impacts kids' lives when they play outside more, when that like sort of becomes their main way of entertaining themselves.
Yeah, well, everything you just said is, right on. And going just briefly touching on screens, I'm the same. I'm not like totally anti-screen, but there are a lot of really good reasons to have a balanced approach to screens. And it's hard when we're busy and we're trying to get work done. Like I run my own business, I get it. But yeah, there are some other things that we can try to do, and we want to try to encourage children to go outside and give them as many opportunities as possible to ideally play outside, but even just to play in a certain kind of way, which is what kids naturally do, which is we call it self-directed play. So where they're choosing the play, they're doing what they want to do because they want to do it. They're kind of creating or controlling the content, what they're playing, how they're playing, who they're playing it with. And that's sort of where that creativity and innovation and imagination comes out. And those are not only things that are really important for the well-being of the child in the moment, but they're also really important skills for them later on. And there's so many benefits to kids playing. So what I see, when kids have more opportunities to play, like, for example, I'm thinking at like a daycare or, a childcare center, they do get to play a lot, depending on the specific center. But when they are able to go outside on a regular basis, they are calmer, more focused. When they are inside, there's less behavioral issues. I'm even thinking just of my daughter last week. There was a heat warning here where I am in Toronto, and they weren't able to go out for 2 days. And like the teachers were complaining that all the kids were like hitting each other and grumpy, and she came home kind of, rangy. And so I think that's something that we need to recognize, that they do better outside and they have that moment to kind of, calm down maybe, or connect with nature, or maybe it's that they're able to move more than they are inside. And that's actually really important for children of all ages, is to be able to fully move their bodies. And just that, fresh air or sunlight, or being able to step away from, whatever it is, your life, or, for kids in school, like being able to step away from class time is so important for them. And if you think about it ourselves too, like we need that too. Working from home, a lot of us are working from home. If you stay inside all day, even if you're at the office and in front of your screen, like you get kind of that, like, I don't know what the word is right now, but, you kind of get like, oh man. So I don't know why it's totally slipping my brain, but, like stir crazy, that's the one, stir crazy, and you kind of need to step outside of this little world that you're in. So yeah, and we can, talk endlessly about the benefits of self-directed play and the benefits of being outside. But the bottom line is it's really, really good for kids, and it's really important, and they don't have as many opportunities to do it as they used to.
It's so funny that you made the point that we could we could take our kids' advice, we could take their lead, because it happens to us too, whether we were working our business at home or working for a corporation at home. We do a lot of sitting. If we don't pay attention, if we don't take breaks, after a while, it's like, oh, I've been sitting for like 3 hours, right? So I think it's also important to remember that we're not kids anymore, but we can still get up, step outside for 5 minutes. If you have the space, go for a little walk. Just
Yeah.
those movement breaks are great for not only us, but our kids, like everybody, right? So
Yeah. It's something I used to, when I was working, in an organization, in an office, I used to do every day. I'd go outside for a walk or even just a breath, and it didn't matter if I was going anywhere specific. I just, because we need that break in the day. And, kids, I talk a lot about the vestibular system too, which is one of they kind of call it our sixth sense. And it's about balance, but it's about a lot more. It's about integrating all of the different sensory inputs that our body has. And it actually is one of the systems that sort of tells the brain to pay attention. So when you move and when you have opportunities to move, you actually are able then to sit down and focus better. And that's true for kids and for adults, except that, kids are still developing, so they need it even more than we do.
for sure, for sure. And I know that one thing that you're truly passionate about is actually encouraging kids to play outside independently. So not just relying on their parents or caregivers, but like actually having the freedom to sort of figure it out on their own. Do you have any tips for us? Because I feel like that is kind of like the like little secret that could like mean so much for so many parents out there, for so many moms who are like, okay, well, how the heck do I actually do this? How do I get my kid to just like play nicely by themselves and not like, mommy, come help me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a balance. It's a skill that they need to learn too. So like, it's not going to be, in a day or in a week that they're going to be able to fully do it. But, and it looks different for different ages too. So, when you have, when you have older kids, there's different kinds of things that you could do. And when you have young ones, well, you do generally need to still be kind of there. And, but I think one of the things that I come back to is that sort of definition of the self-directed play, or, free play is another way to say it. And it's this, and you could think about when you were playing as a child, like think about something that you really love to do, and maybe it's outside, and think about why you were doing it and what were you getting from it. And often, we may not know all of the reasons right now, but we think of it now in a very positive way. And like I'm thinking about, making mud pies in my backyard because I had like a mud kitchen. And why did I love that so much? I don't know, but I was obviously getting something from it. And I was able to choose it and to direct it and be creative and all those kind of things. And that's where we need to start with kids, is how do we let them direct their own play? And so sometimes that means, like, especially when they're little, if they're trying to figure something out, we need to let them try to figure it out, or we need to kind of make sure that we're not telling them how to play with something. And that's where also open-ended things, I even refrain from saying toys too much, but we call them open-ended, where, it's not, it's something that can be used in a bunch of different ways. So especially if you have a toy that like beeps and flashes and sings to you or whatever, that toy is interacting like to the child. The child isn't really interacting with it, right? Like it's, so we want things where the children can manipulate, can be creative, can use it one way this day, another way, a different day. And that really gives them a lot of variety and choice and opportunity to create their own play. So having, I guess, so letting the child lead their play. So that means also if you are playing with them, they direct it as much as possible. Now, you don't want them, like if they say, okay, now we're going to go jump off this cliff, you're not going to do that. But can you let them direct their own play? Some of it might mean, you said, like, are they playing nicely? Well, that might mean adjusting your expectations of what playing nicely means. So like, Now you were saying like, oh, hopefully it wouldn't be mummy, and that's sort of a different topic. But if it's like play wrestling, or maybe there's a fight going on, as long as it's like you within boundaries, right? You don't want them fighting with knives or something, but some of that is part of what they need to learn, right? They need to learn how to negotiate social situations. They need to learn how to advocate for themselves. If they're kind of rough and tumble, wrestling, something like that, it's similar. It's how to know what your own boundaries are, what your boundaries for your body is, what your boundaries for, emotional reactions are, and navigating those social situations. And we find that kids who don't have opportunities to do that actually have more problems later adjusting to social situations. And it could mean too, like allowing things to get messy, right? So I did another podcast a couple months ago, and the host at the end was like, she had COVID, and she was like, I let my kids just dig in the backyard, and I thought I was being a neglectful mom, but I couldn't get off the couch because she had COVID. And she realized that actually that was a really great experience for them, but she might not have let that happen before because, you feel like you have to be in there, you have to be, maybe you have to be moderating, or you have to be like, there's all this pressure these days about, you have to play with your child and have a really great connection. And well, there's mom pressure about everything. And those things are important, but letting your kids play and do their own thing and maybe get messy and maybe get hurt a little bit, like those are all really important for the development, but it actually also strengthens your relationship with them when they can come back to you and you're there for them. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't always have to be with them every moment to be a good parent.
I love that. I feel like that can take so much pressure off of us moms, especially when we feel like we have to entertain our kids 24/7, B, like, sort of keep them safe at all costs, even if that means like not letting them play with like that little stick over there or that rock over there because they might, do whatever. It's sort of just like, as long as, like you said, as long as they're not like grabbing a knife or something that can seriously hurt them, then, it's okay. Like little nicks and little scratches happen to everyone, and, we get better.
Yeah. And I think like, I'm not sure I fully answered the independent play question, so we could come back a bit to it maybe if you want, but, and what we've learned now, and there's research that is supporting this within the last few years that's been done, is that, by protecting our kids, and we call it, bubble wrapping, or that helicopter parenting term, that we're actually doing more damage to them than good. So we're protecting them from maybe, skinning their knee or sometimes even breaking a bone. But what we're actually doing by stopping them from doing all these amazing things, because we're worried that something might happen, we're actually putting them at a greater risk for things, both physical health, like a mental health, emotional, all those things I just said about like social learning, social emotional learning that happens. So we're realizing that there's a phrase that we use too in the play world called safe as necessary, not safe as possible. So necessary meaning like, again, like, if you're going to let them play in the backyard, maybe take a look and make sure that there's like no sharp things around, or have conversations with them about what is okay and what's not okay, and have them be part of that conversation. And then, but then accepting that risk and challenging themselves is good for their independence and their self-esteem, but it's also good for their bodies, like the vestibular system I talked about, like moving and hanging upside down and rolling around on the ground is all really great for developing that, as well as like their physical bones and muscles. Like one of the things that we're seeing is that kids their bones aren't as strong as they used to be. And because they're not getting that active, movement, and they're not being able to challenge their bodies in the same way. So I'm thinking, our play structures have gotten simpler and simpler and simpler. And there's a lot of rules of like, don't do this, don't do that on the playground. And so what happens is that now they're breaking bones more because they haven't been able to take some risks to challenge their bodies, to build their bodies properly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't even, yeah, I've never heard that before. That totally makes sense. And yeah, just going back to independent play a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think, some of the things like if you've got a young child, start now. If you've got a baby, start. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but we do, it's exactly what you said. We need to let go of all of the expectations and all of the mom guilt as much as we can. I mean, I've got it for lots of things, but you don't have to entertain your kids all the time. And you're actually doing them a lot of good if you're not, because kids need to explore and they need to wonder and think and be curious about stuff and try things out and fail and try again and challenge themselves in their bodies, both so that they have that understanding of what they can do and what they're comfortable with, and that willingness to try, as well as the physical stuff that we talked about. So, even with babies, one of the things that, I didn't really do this in my work before I was a parent, but one of the things I did with my child was, let her be on her mat a lot. We went outside, we went for walks and, we played on a mat outside as well, but I really tried to not be in her face all the time, and you kind of have some things around her so that if she's interested, she could reach it. But if she was fascinated by something, that was, on her play mat or, in her environment, like just if they're interested, let them play with it for however long they want, and give them. So I talk about it too, this time, space, and permission. So giving children the time that they need to play. And, for babies, that's really about exploring things. And they need a lot of time to, they'll play with a tag for like hours if you let them. Right. And then, older kids, especially once they get into school, that's a lot of their time is taken up being in classes. So we need to give them time outside of that to play and to direct their own play. And then that permission, which is a big one, which has to do with risk and saying no, but it also can be, just stepping back and letting the child explore and letting them do their own thing. And I think we often feel like we need to step in. We feel like we need to I'm not a good parent if I'm not, adding something to this or engaging my child. And it's a balance. Like you don't want to be that absent parent that is not at all attuned to your child or not paying any attention or not playing with them at all. But it's really good to let them do their own thing and explore their world and try things out. And the way that you can support that is by space, giving them a space that they can explore, that there's interesting things for them to do, or and that doesn't have to be toys, and it certainly doesn't have to be fancy toys. I think that's another one too. Like you don't have to have the most expensive toy to support your child's development. I think at a certain age, maybe they want it because their friends have it, but it's really like there's the joke about the kid like the box better it's true. And there's a reason for it, which is that it's an open-ended material. They can destroy it if they want. They can draw on it. They can make it be one thing. It's a rocket ship today. It's a house tomorrow. So that's, you can start there with things that are interesting. And that might be, letting them dig in the backyard or letting them climb up some rocks and, kind of explore what their body can do. Playing with a stick or making a fort in the backyard or making a fort inside with, chairs and a sheet. So coming back to independent play, like that's a good place to start, giving them time, space, and permission, building it into your day, building that self-directed play into your day and giving them as many opportunities as possible to do it. so that builds kind of their play muscle. So they get used to it, as opposed to when you're always trying to figure out things for them to do, or you're off going to, some event, because we feel like we always have to fill their time, right? But yeah, so when you're entertaining them, they learn not to know how to entertain themselves, right? And they get used to that. And then you also, you find that then as they grow up too, they don't know how to entertain themselves, and they don't know how to, sometimes they don't even really know like who they are, because it hasn't come from within themselves. It's always come from outside of themselves.
That's so true. Yeah, that's it's a great point. I even think of that. But yeah, I think like you said, encouraging them from an early age, as early as possible, makes so much sense. And I was very curious on your response, because I have a 22-month-old. I mean, she's not quite a baby anymore, but we're definitely getting to that point where I'm trying to let her play independently a little bit more. She does okay most of the time, but there are times, and it's funny because I feel like they can read our minds. It's like when I have something to do, when I have like, oh, I just really need to send this message out really quick, and she's like, mommy. But yeah, like you're saying, there's start early and start with offering those 3 things that will make it possible to kind of have it done in a smooth way. So also like forcing your kids to like play independently.
Yeah, and you want it to come from them too, right? So it's the idea of like, you sort of like, you prepare the environment in a way, and that doesn't have to be like, you could go all Montessori and have it be, look pretty and have it be all organized, but that's not how I do. I just have a bunch of things around that is interesting, and I see what she's interested in at that point, and then I kind of support it that way. So like one of the things that she's been really interested in lately is like, this is my daughter I'm speaking of, small world play, right? So taking her little people and then creating like a story with them, and she really likes to take them from one place to another. So I noticed that, so made sure we have people, then okay, we've got some cars for her, or like things that she can move them with. But then I created a bunch of different spaces. And when I say that, like, all I mean is like, I put a table in this corner of the room, and then I put her like, wooden kind of barn in another corner, so that there were these routes that she could go. So you kind of, you see what they're interested in, and you kind of follow that a little bit, and you try it out, but you're not like, oh, let's do this. Right. It's kind of like you go, I always think of it sort of, you go from like underneath kind of, or you quietly kind of support it, and then you see what happens. And if they respond to it, then that's awesome. And if they're not, then, you can take those things away and bring it out on another day, or yeah. And it doesn't, and I really want to stress that, like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be the Amazon box that like you're about to throw out, or, an old, like, or some kitchen Tupperware. Like young kids particularly love like, stacking or sorting or fitting things into, putting something into a container and taking it out, taking something from one place to another, whether that's inside or outside.
Ah, great. Boxes are a big hit in this house, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, like thinking about your daughter, like, at that age, you do still have to be like, it's hard for them to really play independently. And I can't remember exactly the ages, but with my daughter, there were like these certain times where all of a sudden something must have clicked in her brain, and she was like, the play just got way more independent and way more creative. And so, I think that one of the things that I noticed that always did engage her is sensory play. That would always engage her for longer. So things like we have, and I know not everybody has a backyard, and but we have a balcony, and so we have a little water table on our balcony, and I would just fill it up with water, like nothing fancy. Sometimes I would put some bubbles in it, just like have this natural dish soap stuff, and like she would spend a really long time with that. And then I could sit near her and, get some work done or read my book or whatever it was, have a little bit of coffee. And then, if she would come over and want to show me something or, then that's that connection piece, but then she's able to go back and do her playing kind of. So, yeah, but it's hard when they're little for sure. And, but I do find that the sensory stuff, like you can look up sensory bins. Again, it doesn't have to be complicated. People do like rice in a Tupperware bin and some like kitchen utensils. If you go to Pinterest, you'll get all these like, you dye the rice or you like, get all these fancy setups with like little animals and it's like, you don't need to do that. If you want to, awesome, but you don't need to. So I just had a Tupperware bin with some rice and some kitchen stuff like spoons and a funnel and measuring cups. And she would just scoop and pour. And it did get messy, but, it was kind of worth it for me. So I would put down actually an old tablecloth and put it in the kitchen. And then I would try to just wrap it up afterwards, or, we vacuumed, but sometimes that also meant that she helped me vacuum. And that was, especially for, a 2-year-old, is kind of fun. Cleaning can be quite fun.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for this conversation, Jane. You've given me some great ideas, actually. So I think I'm going to put some of those to use this afternoon. If people want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about what you're doing, if they have any questions, where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. It's at Jane Pilskalnietis, which we'll hopefully link to because I know it's hard to spell. But if you search for outdoor play specialist in Instagram, it should come up, or even in Google. And then you can feel free to DM me there. And Wild Bright Play is my company. So www.wildbrightplay.com. And you could always, connect with me through there or send me an email, jane@wildbrightplay.com.
Great. We'll have all those links in the show notes. Thank you again, Jane. And thank you to everybody who is listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much if you left us a review and share it with one of your mom or caregiver friends who might need some support around this area. So thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Femmes movement. I would love to hear your thoughts on the podcast, so please leave us a review. And sharing is caring. If you know someone who may benefit from this episode, please share it with them. We need more women up-leveling to their highest selves with grace, courage, and ease. If you'd like to connect with me more and have access to free live trainings and join a community of hundreds of other amazing women, then join my free Facebook group, the Fit Femmes Tribe.